President of the National NICE Association. Tom's passion is the development of business. He has a track record of successfully assisting to launch, now I wrote over 6,000 businesses, but it's apparently over 6,700 businesses, correct? And his services can provide information that includes business mentoring, coaching, and also you talked about the Micro Enterprise Loans Program. So have a little listen to what Tom's got to say. I think that you'll be very impressed.
Thank you, Karen. Well, as Karen mentioned, I'm involved with the delivery of the new Enterprise Incentive Scheme. And the new Enterprise Incentive Scheme is the federal government's longest running labour market program. And I've been delivering it for about 15 years. And during that time, as Karen said, I've assisted in the commencement of just over 6,700 small businesses. I had very dark hair when I started, and it does take its toll. I wonder if you could tell me from you've done studies in these things, and I wonder if you could tell me the successful outcome rate of people who start a small business under the NICE program. Don't all talk at once. Give me a percentage. State government tells us that 75% of all small businesses that start up fail to renew their registration, effectively fail in the first 12 months. They give it away, it's too hard. Come back to the question. How many people survive? How many people succeed through the NICE program? 92%. 92% of all those folk who have started with us, and this is the 92% relates to the last 3 years, 92% of those folk who started with us the last 3 years are still in business. Why?
Because they have the tools and support.
Excellent, excellent. We need to have a look at very quickly, what does the NICE program provide? The NICE program provides you with training. We deliver Certificate 4 in Business. Every one of you has a qualification that is higher than Certificate 4 in Business, yes? Don't all speak together. So, we deliver Certificate 4 in Business to each one of these folk. We then get them to write a business plan as part of that training program, so they can put down their responses and how they're going to respond to various issues that come up in the future. That's what a business plan is all about. They then get the NICE allowance, which is the same amount as Centrelink benefit over the next 12 months. And they get business mentoring, which means they've got somebody to talk to. We have business mentors all throughout Australia, and they're no smarter than you or I. But what they are is somebody that you can talk to and say, I got this drama, I got this problem, and I really don't know how to deal with it. Can I talk it through with you? And so a good mentor is saying, yeah, talk it through. Tell me, how do you feel about this? What do you think your options are? And it's amazing how the business owner can usually come up with the right answer themselves if you can talk it through. So the majority of small business people who fail, unfortunately, don't have somebody to talk to. What you guys are doing here at the moment with vet fee help, in other words, financial support, getting a qualification that's certainly higher than Cert 4 in Business, if only you can create a connection with your fellow students, a network where you can talk to each other into the future, you will assure yourselves of a similar outcome rate. Because there is no secret. The most important element to having a successful small business is first doing a business-related course of Certificate 4 or higher, obviously. And do it with something in mind that you'd like to do into the future. Because as you go through certain things and as you do certain assignments, you're thinking, how will this apply to my new business? Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that, well, I think it's very interesting, and I hope I don't put you to sleep. The other thing that's interesting is that businesses morph. So somebody who comes in and they say, I'm going to start up a business as a sheep shearer, is a good example. I love this example. This guy, you're going to start up a business as a sheep shearer. He said, righto. I had this guy, Kevin Kiley. He knows that I use him as a horrible example. And Kevin came in and he was a sheep shearer and comedian. And as he would shear the sheep, he would do it as a stage show. He was a shearer. But as he decided he wanted to become a sheep shearing comedian. And as he would shear the sheep, he would talk to the sheep and be very rude to it usually. And it was really quite funny. He was quite a character. But then after doing that for a little while, he had the opportunity and the idea to start putting together baby animals and taking the baby animals out to schools and fetes. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah.
Noah's Farm. And all of a sudden, he realised he didn't have to do anything. All he had to do was put up the fences and take a trailer load of ducks and chickens and lambs and piglets and whatever, and the kiddies would come and say, oh, aren't you beautiful? And pat, 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 cuddle, 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 photograph, photograph. And he'd pack them all up at the end of the day and go home and charge a fortune. So he franchised it out. And there's little ducks and little chickens all over the place, being cuddled and petted. And he said, I saw him one day and I said to him, Kevin, how's it going now that you're not doing the sheep shearing so much and you're doing the Noah's Farm? He said, well, Noah's Farm is easy. He said, the only problem is that I need to deal with the fact that I'm eating too much. And I said, why are you eating too much? He said, because chickens have a habit of growing up. And so do little lambs. And the whole caboodle. And I spoke to him last year and I said, how's it going with the animals? Have you lost any weight? And he said, yeah, I've been able to curb the appetite. I've had to. He said, I was as big as a house. And he said, I bought this property up here in Warwick, and he said, I've been able to get a property where I've got a number of paddocks and I can put the animals, when they're just a little bit too big to take to school, put them out in the paddocks, feed them up and sell them off. And he said that business of petting the animals is now chicken feed compared to selling these fattened up lambs and pigs. And you didn't want to hear that, did you? You're a vegetarian, right? You didn't want to know that? Okay, never mind. But so he's got a wonderful business. I said, so is that the end of the thing? You're going to keep doing the baby animals and the thing? He said, oh no, he said, I've got a new thing. I said, what's that? He said, I'm into thoroughbred pig racing. And I said, well mate, that's big. That's big. And I said, how did you get into thoroughbred pig racing? He said, well, I've got a lot of pigs. And I said, yeah, sure. And he said, pig racing has just become very big. I said, so what, you have pigs that have like extraordinarily large rear legs, do you, or what? Or do you have pigs that corner well? And he said, well, yeah, all of that. He said the different pigs have different attributes, and he said, I breed the runners and I get better runners and so on. I said, you're pulling my leg. I said, where have you ever run your racing pigs? He said, Flemington. I said, what, the race course in Melbourne? He said, yeah. I said, when? He said, last Melbourne Cup. I said, you ran your pigs in the Melbourne Cup? He said, yeah. I said, Kevin, you're delusional. He said, no. He said, you know those road barrier things that you fill up full of water? I said, yep. So the guy brought those down. We made this big oval track at the back of the car park at Flemington. And so we had bookies. We had thousands of people hanging over these barriers, and the pigs were racing around. I said, you must have very small jockeys. I said, you're kidding me that you are now selling thoroughbred racing pigs to idiots that think that they can win a race with a pig? He said, yep, there's one born every minute. And I said, and what happens what happens when the pig's too old to race? He said, I eat him. I said, you haven't changed much. Well, what a great story, Kevin and Kylie. And the reason that Kevin's a great story for you guys is that it should give you the idea that the future looks bright. And it really does. You too could be into thoroughbred pig racing, not too distant future. The key here is to say that the business you go into now requires a certain business knowledge, a certain talent, and a certain passion in a certain area. And what happened with Kevin is he was a sheep shearer. He knew sheep. He knew animals. He knew farms. And isn't it amazing how once he got out there and started being active in his business, how this opportunity came, then that opportunity came, then he got too fat, and he bought a farm in Warwick. Isn't that amazing?
At least you thought about the way not to continue to get fat.
Yeah.
Long run.
So what I'm saying is that the business idea you start with now will morph. Yeah? Will morph. And it will grow. Some people start a business and stay in the same business the whole time. And it just grows and grows and grows, and eventually they sell it and they go do something else entirely different. There are hundreds of fascinating people that I have met. And the interesting thing as well, we're talking about pigs. The interesting thing, sorry.
Have you got enough bacon so we can eat?
The most interesting thing about all of these businesses is that somebody started a business that they had a passion about. Now I'm going to tell you something. If you get involved in a business, either working for a business or starting up a business that you hate, God only knows why you do that, but if you hate it, and if you hate going to work every day, you'll grow old very quickly and you'll die. All right? You'll die.
That's me.
And he's all right. Because it's too much stress, right? It's too much stress. But if you can find something that you're passionate about, like photography, if you can find something that you can see yourself in, if you can find something you're really passionate about, you've got to go for it. You've got to have guts and you've got to have determination, and you'll get there. But the thing that you're passionate about will probably change a little bit as opportunities come to you, and you've got to be willing to take those opportunities to make them grow. Yep? Is that sounding all right so far?
Yeah.
Good. One of the other things that we do within the NEAS program is that we offer some finance. One of the things that we noticed a few years ago was that originally the government, about 15, 16 years ago, maybe a bit shorter than that, the government used to offer an arrangement where they would give a SEVS, a SEVS loan to folk who qualified for those loans. They were a grant more than a loan. They didn't have to be repaid, but they were called loans. And when the government stopped giving loans for start-up businesses, everybody was wailing in the streets. They said, this is terrible, we'll never be able to get people to start up new businesses now if we haven't got the loan opportunity. But the interesting thing happened that within about 6 months, the people that were entering the program were just as successful. In fact, were getting better. So the fact that there was a loan available or a grant available didn't change much in terms of the successful outcome of the businesses that were being started up. Crikey. What does that mean?
Just out of curiosity, what percentage then just continued without the loan?
All of them.
All of them?
They cut the loans. They said, that's it, no more loans. And when they said no more loans, they said, righto, go it alone. We'll just give you the Centrelink benefit continuation for a period, and best of luck. So that's what we had to work with. That's what we're still working with today. Yep. So that continued for quite a while. We were speaking with the National Bank. The National Bank has several initiatives that it's taken up of recent times. And then with the National Bank, we were able to develop what we call a micro-enterprise loan. And a micro-enterprise loan is a loan of up to $20,000 at 5.99%, payable over 3 years, and for capital purposes to commence a business. And they're only available to people who've gone through the NICE process or a process that's very similar. And you folk would be qualified as being very similar. Okay? If you complete a training course, Certificate 4 and higher, have a business plan, and do that with the intent of starting up a business, you would qualify. That's the basic rules of NICE anyway, so you're qualified to make an application for that. So, we introduced this loans program, and that's been running now for the last 5 years, and we've had a 0 delinquency rate. 0. How about that? So that's a pretty good rate, a pretty good outcome for the National Bank. And I have regular quarterly meetings with the bank in Melbourne to talk about how this is going and why. And we don't quite know why, but the outcome rate of the loans, because not everybody who applies gets it, I must say, they're very tough. You need to have started the business, be operating the business, and have a cash flow and be able to demonstrate a cash flow to the bank, and you then need to be able to show that by the injection of an additional amount of money for capital purposes, your cash flow would immediately rise and therefore be able to easily repay the loan to the National Bank. Do you understand how that works? It's not rocket science, is it?
Without the money, without the ongoing money, you can't get the loan because how are you going to repay it?
Yes, you've got to have a basic level of cash flow and a logical base to that level. Just say a logical base to that level of cash flow. You come in with a capital injection on top of that for capital purposes, which results in Zoom you coming up to here with your cash flow, making repayment easy. Very simple formula. Sorry.
So it's really not a feasible option for anyone who's starting up their own business?
It's only available to people who are starting up their own business, but you must have started.
You must have been able to get a cash flow.
So they have to be established for at least a year or so?
No, usually about 2 months. 2 months, 3 months. You just need, at the point where you're starting to get cash flow. In every business, cash flow is king. If you haven't got cash flow, you're dead. So cash flow is what it's all about. It doesn't matter what business you're in. If you don't have cash flow, you're dead in the water. Go home. So, in everything we talk about, cash flow is king. You agree with that? Yeah. And people come in and say, well, I don't need the cash flow, I just want to save the world. There's a lot of people want to save the world. They don't get a look in. And of course, they're out of the saving the world business within about 3 months. They've run out of their money and their parents' money and everybody else's money, gone out the back door. So cash flow is always king. So yeah, that's the way it works. Every one of the folk that I have started through the NICE program, none of them have any money. They're on Centrelink benefits. Some people have been on Centrelink benefits for 5 years.
How do you become on the NICE program?
You've got to be registered with Centrelink, receiving a Centrelink benefit, parenting payment, unemployment benefit or whatever. They refer you across to Campbell Page or one of the other job services providers, and you say to them, you know what I really want to do? I don't want to get a job in the shirt factory sewing on buttons. What I really want to do is start a business. And they say, oh, well, you better go and talk to Tom. Or you better go and talk to somebody else who's in the NICE program. That's it.
It's not fair.
Well, it's not fair, but you're 50 to 60% along the way anyway.
It's not fair.
Yes, it is,
For
though.
people who say, for example, for me, my partner apparently earns too much and I'm only entitled to my family tax A and B. So
The people who I start in business have no stability like that whatsoever. Many of them don't have a house.
I've got a house, apparently.
Yeah.
It's not mine, it's his, but I live
Yeah, I
in
know,
it.
but what I'm saying is, you know what I'm saying? All of you folk have an advantage over the people who normally start business, who go through Certificate 4 and you're going through Diploma,
Yeah.
and who are getting a 90% successful outcome,
So we
and so can you,
could get a higher
because you have a better base to start with. You should be brimming with confidence. Yeah.
But it's not true that the NICE program likes really unique business ideas, that there is minimal competition?
the competition issue is a very real one, and in the negotiations we had with government in 2008-2009, the Labor government was going to bring in a restriction on the NEIS program to restrict to skill shortages. In other words, there had to be a skill shortage of your particular business activity in your district for you to be able to get onto the program. And we thought, hell, that's too hard. Yeah, that is ridiculous difficulty. So I was able to negotiate with government to have an arrangement where you would be able to prove that there was a skill shortage in your district if you were able to get 8 or more letters of intent. Say you're a mobile hairdresser and you want to start up a mobile hairdressing business. Now, I've started up dozens, I don't know how many, mobile hairdressing businesses. And they're very popular because you can't afford a salon.
With the cost of shop rents.
Yeah, that's true. So we didn't want to be deprived from being able to do that because they're all very successful. So we negotiated an arrangement, and the final arrangement that I was able to agree to was that if that applicant was able to provide 8 genuine letters of intent from a person who was willing to say in a letter that she would love to have a mobile hairdresser come round to her house to do her hair. She hasn't been able to get one over the last 6 months. There's none of them available. Those that are there, they're all booked out, and she would love to see Joan start up this business as a mobile hairdresser. If she gets 8 letters of that sort, that proves there's a skill shortage in this particular area that she lives, therefore she's in. So yes, we do have skill shortages issues on very common businesses. But I get the most unusual business. I had a man was sitting on a toilet one day. Do you want to hear about the man sitting on a toilet? This man had been unemployed for 3 years, and he was really depressed. And very depressed, he was sitting on the toilet one day, and he came up with an invention. Do you want to hear it? Right. So,
But were you in the bathroom with him?
he was settled down. He was ruminating on his future and what might come of his life, because he used to be the guy that put wheels onto Volvo trucks. He used to lift the wheels and bolt them onto Volvo trucks. That was his background at wheel fitter, a fitter at Volvo trucks. Anyway, he came to see me and he said, I've got an invention. And I said, okay. I said, what's the invention? He said, well, I don't know what to do with it, because he said, if I tell you, you'll be able to go and do it. And I said, fine, go and see a patent attorney. So I gave him the address of a friend of mine who's a patent attorney who would listen to him. He came back to see me about 8 months later. He said, I've got a world patent on my invention, and I now want to go into the NEIS program. I said, okay, good. Are you able to tell me? He said, I'll do better than that, I'll show you. So out of his little bag, he brought out a Ziploc bag, about that big. It had a piece of tube, clear plastic tubing, about that thick, no? About that long. A little tube of Celastic sealant and 2 clips. There it is. And I said, terrific. He said, I can evacuate the smells out of a toilet. I can evacuate the smells out of a toilet 500 times faster than any exhaust fan known to man. And I said, that's a big call. How can you prove that? He said, there's a letter from James Cook University saying it's 500 times better than any fan they could put in a toilet. And I said, okay.
It's really sucking the smell out.
And I said, well, I can't quite figure how you do that with a little plastic tube. He said, very simple. He said, when you have your toilet, he said, you take the top off the toilet, what do you see? I said, you see the water. He said, you see the little thing going down. When you flush, it all goes to bush and away you go. And he said, there's a hole at the top there, yeah? And I said, yeah. He said, what's the hole for? I said, if that's in case the water doesn't turn off and it comes up too high, it'll actually run down the hole in the top and run down into the bottom. He said, perfect. Now, he thought this up sitting on the toilet, which I think is lovely. I think this is lovely. And he said, I said, okay. So he said, you'll agree that there's an air channel that goes from the top of the toilet above the water down into the bowl. I said, yeah, done, agreed. I said, but that hasn't helped you at all. He said, well, what I want you to do is just come above that water line. I want you to drill through the back of the toilet cistern, then through the wall and through the bricks and out the other side. I want you to poke this tube through, and where it goes into the, I just want you to seal it up with the silicone sealant just in case it doesn't drip and that sort of stuff, you know. And put a clip on it so it can't move. And put the lid back on, and you're away. Done. And I said, no, I'm not done. I said, you haven't done anything. Well, you haven't stuck a tube through. He said, oh yeah. Oh. He said, I just need positive pressure in the bathroom. I said, what positive pressure? He said, look. He said, unless you have an accident on the way to the toilet, you will agree that all the smell is in the bowl. I said, correct. And we've agreed that there's a little gap under the seat, yep. And there's a channel that goes from the bowl up that little tube and outside. I said, yeah. But I said, you've done nothing. He said, well, we just need positive pressure in your bathroom. I said, but I've got the window open. I got those little louver things with the gauze and stuff. He said, but I'm not interested in your toilet. He said, I'm interested in every toilet that's built in every unit and every high-rise building in the world that has a toilet on the inside, not on the outside wall where the view is, and every motel and hotel, that's where the toilet is. I said, yeah. And he said, positive pressure is called air conditioning. And all of a sudden the penny dropped. He has got a constant flow of air going under the seat, into the bowl, up this tube and out. I
The
said,
smell can get out without residing into the room.
nothing. No fan, no nothing. Everything that goes in the bowl goes straight up the tube because that's the way the air conditioning's going. I thought, you devil. He charges 2 cents. 2 cents to the architects and builders all around the world. Hong Kong, Singapore, Dubai, America, everywhere. He's got world patents on this thing, 2 cents. Do you know how much he makes? You can't count it. You remember, I don't know, before your time, but Scrooge McDuck used to go, Scrooge McDuck used to go into his vault and throw the money up in the air and go diving in the money. Do you? Isn't that a wonderful story?
I would like to have that bowl, please.
Isn't that a wonderful story? And what I'm saying is that it's somebody has an idea and says, I can make this work. And you guys have the same ideas. Because ideas are like trains at the station. There's one coming through every few minutes. Do you know the difference between the general population and you guys? You know what the difference is? You're not at the station.
We're on the train.
You've got to have your bag packed. You've got to be ready to go. Here comes the train. I'm on there, and I'm going. So the train of opportunity is coming past everybody every day, every few minutes. And most people are blind. Most people can't see it. But if you open your eyes to the opportunities that are around you every day, you'll get there. You'll get there, and it doesn't have to be poo. So
We discussed, Paul, where to get money to patent his invention.
my friend who was the patent attorney saw the advantage of the business straight away and did it on escrow for free for him, and he paid him later because he realised how much money was in it. It was like that for him. He could see it just bang. Yeah. And I mean, it's just wonderful. There are things, and you know, these are like obstacles and roadblocks that come in your way. You've got to find ways around them, and people can. There's a million stories I can tell you. I had 3 pimple-faced young fellas just like you came to see me one day. They said, we want to write music. Long hair, unshaven, pimples, you know. And they came in and they said, we want to write music. I said, guys, there's no money in writing music. I said, you've got to get a gig at a pub and play covers, you know. A bit of Elvis, a bit of this, that, and the other. I said, no, we don't play Elvis in a gig at a band. At a pub, leave me alone. And I said, mate, if you haven't got cash flow, you can't sit at home writing music that nobody's ever heard and expect that you're going to make any money. You've got to have cash flow. You've got to be out there earning money on the weekends and writing music during the day. So we're not going to do it. Why not? Can't you play? Can't you play covers? Yeah, but we don't play Elvis. Don't play Elvis. Play anything. play current stuff, but just get out there Sundays and do a gig in a beer garden. And they said, okay, we will. They retired last year. They made about $30 million writing music. I was wrong. They didn't need to play in band. Well, they did actually. They would have died if they hadn't got cash flow. There was a band called Powderfinger. And they did write music. But unless those guys had gone out and started playing in pubs to get cash flow, this is the greatest cash flow lesson of all time for young people. Unless they'd gone out to get cash flow by playing pubs and gigs on the weekends, they would never have been able to sit down and write the fabulous stuff that they did. And that was in the 12 months prior to Bernard Fanning joining them. There was a big boilover of people at that stage. And that was the genesis of Powderfinger. And the answer was cash flow. The reason they were successful, and still successful people today, is that they got the message early. Don't waste your time dreaming of what might be. Follow the dream, but get the cash flow to start with. Does that make sense? So whatever business you're thinking of going into, you must look at having either a second stream out here rolling away making the cash flow, or something manipulating the business in some way that you get cash flow straight away. Do we understand each other? Don't all speak at once. Nodding is okay, but speaking is excellent. Okay. Questions? What do you want to know?
Does your cash flow momentum necessarily mean profit, or is it just a flow generator?
Cash flow to keep you alive.
Yeah.
Cash flow means keeping you alive until you can make the big bucks, because then you can survive forever. Okay? A lot of the business, we talk about 90%, a lot of the businesses that I've started over the years aren't making millions of dollars. You know, Powderfinger did, and numerous others did, and usually about 2 each year make $1 million profit. Terrific. But the majority do well, and maybe 20-25% just bounce along. They have learnt the cash flow lesson. They get enough cash flow to pay for their house, their kids, their education, their food, and that sort of stuff. They've got that covered. They're not banking a lot. Okay, they're paying their taxes. They're not banking a lot, but they know where they're going, and they just need another break, and then another break, and another one, and all of a sudden they're away. And when most people who fail because they don't have the financial wherewithal to stay with the business, in other words, to have the guts to stay with the business long enough for the second and third opportunity to come along. And as I said, they're like the trains going through the station. If you're there on the platform with your bag packed, they are coming along every few minutes. But for a lot of people, they can't see that. They have no confidence in that. Therefore, they give it away. And they say, it's not going to work. Too many arguments. You have too many arguments with your wife when there's not enough money to feed your family. And I know that. And that's the killer. And you've got no right to put your family into poverty. So the key is you've got to then work out your cash flow and make sure that you can survive to the next big opportunity. Powderfinger survived until Bernard Fanning. Powderfinger, the three guys that were finished up as Powderfinger, all were Brisbane Grammar School boys. And they came to the decision that they needed something more. And Bernard Fanning they knew from Gregory Terrace. He went to Terrace. And you've got to be local to know all these things. But Bernard was a Terrace boy. And then Bernard came and joined them. And of course, he was just that catalyst that really made it great. And away they went. But they had to survive long enough for Bernard to join them. If they had just been writing music and nobody wants their music, and they hadn't been doing gigs and they hadn't had the cash flow to stay together as a group, guess what?
That'd be over.
Bernard would have been working in a bank, wouldn't he? Of course he would have. And it wouldn't have happened. So you kind of make your own luck to a degree, but it's not luck. It's the inevitability of opportunity that comes when people are open to that opportunity and they're working towards getting it.
true that all businesses don't actually start off in the first year? Like you've got to work through the first year or so?
Every single business I help start has an expectation of having a net cash flow of $15,000 in the first 12 months.
Oh.
Net. And in the final quarter, the fourth quarter that I'm with them, I like them to have around about a $3,000 to $6,000 net cash flow in that final quarter. In that fourth quarter. That's very, very important because I know then they'll be okay. And we make sure that everybody is. There's lots of tears, there's lots of arguments and stuff along the way. But it all starts at the training end because that's what we're talking about. That's what you're here for today, to learn the rules in terms of business, but also the thing that you can't put your hand on and you can't understand. And 50% of people in the room today still won't understand the idea about the train, the platform and the briefcase. And I know that you won't. And that's sad, but I can't change that. Others will say, I've always thought that. I've always thought that. Well, I'm here to say that if you can develop your business, that you've got cash flow, and then you can stay in that business long enough for other opportunities to come, and a lot of people stay in the same business and do the same thing every single week for years and years and years and years, and never open themselves up to growing and the bigger opportunity. But you can. But you can. Just by thinking you can, I guess, to a large degree. It's the stuff that we teach, but you can't put it in a book somewhere, you know, because you look at, there's so many people that have done so well out there, and then others have just stumbled along. What's the difference? They're not that much smarter. I think Donald Trump's an idiot. You ever seen Donald Trump on TV? Not only does he have hair problems, not that I don't, but not only does he have hair problems, but you would say, I'm smarter than him. He's a dill. And so you've got to say, well, if Donald Trump can do it in his lifetime, how come other people don't do it as well? And it's being able to see opportunity and work towards developing opportunity. How does that all sound? Wonderful. What else would you want to know? Yeah.
Does the new scheme help like any business, or
Yeah.
do they really picky on what they think is going to work or not?
Oh yeah. You've got to be selective.
Yeah.
We can't take. I mean, I had a lady. She was a classic. Just before Christmas, she came in. This lady looked terrible. She'd had her teeth beaten out. They were cracked and something. She had the worst looking face, skinny. Didn't have a feed. Her hair was terrible. Her clothes. And she came in. I said, "What is it you'd like to become? What do you want to do?" And she said, "I want to be a life coach." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Why would I come to see you if I wanted life coaching?" She said, "I've had a shit of a life." She said, "You have no idea how many bad decisions I've made in my life. And I've done this, and men don't talk about it, you know." And she just went on and on. This is the most sad and miserable person I've met in a long time. And she really has had a rotten life. And rather than say, "No, go away," I felt compelled to sit and talk with her to see if I could help a little bit. In truth, a life coach should be a woman who's made a wonderful success of her life. And Betty Byrne, who runs Byrne Ford, that surfboard lady in at Woolloongabba, who's run the surfboard, the Good Time Surf Shop, she's run that for so many years and she's made a wonderful success of it. I want to talk to those people. I want those people to tell me how they've been successful, therefore how you can be successful. So when people come in looking like that and say they want to be a life coach, I've got to say, I don't think so. I had another person came to see me one day and he told me that he was an aura washer. Aura washer. I'll never forget this guy. He's a lovely man. And his idea was that he will wash your aura for you. Now, I wouldn't mind having my aura washed, but I would hate to be walking down the street. I mean, how would you know if the tea towel was a bit off and that he didn't leave you streaky? You know? And how would you feel if you're walking down the street and say, "Who's that guy over there?" And somebody says, "Oh, you mean the guy with the streaky aura?" Wouldn't you feel terrible? And to pay for that would be terrible, wouldn't it? But some people have the craziest ideas. And those sorts of ideas, of course, are not going to fly. I had a guy come and see me, he wanted to go and collect elephant poop. I said, we don't have a lot of elephants here. He said, I know there's 2 circuses with elephants, and I want to collect the elephant poop. And I said, okay, why would you do that? And he'd just been released from jail, which I knew. And he said, well, it's a wonderful organic fertiliser. I said, did that get you into trouble last time? He said, yes, it is, but I still have a wonderful knowledge of it. And I said, well, what are you going to do? He said, well, my dad says that it's the only thing I know about, so I want to collect elephant poop and sell it to gardeners and so on, because it's the world's best organic fertiliser. When God made elephants, she said, we're going to make you elephants eat a hell of a lot of leaves. Well, maybe not a hell of a lot, an awful lot of leaves. And so the elephant has a little machine inside its gut that turns these leaves into poo and shoots it out the back, but just before it shoots out the back, there's another little injector there that injects this enzyme into the poo, and as it goes out, all the roots of all the grasses and trees are saying, oh, send it down, yum, yum, we want more of this, and it goes, and it grows, these leaves come out of trees all over the place. Grasses and leaves produce leaves like there's no tomorrow. And the elephants come along and say, well, that's good, you eat all the leaves. So, elephant poo is a wonderful, I didn't know that until he told me. Elephant poo is a wonderful thing. He actually collects the elephant poo in 2 trucks now because the other one rusted out. The poo apparently rusts out steel trucks. And he has a barn up at Jimboomba full of poo, and it's a lovely sight in the morning as it steams under these big truck tarpaulins. And he puts the poo through his wife's blender. She doesn't use the blender for much else. And it comes out looking like brown desiccated coconut. And he puts 4 tablespoons in a Ziploc bag and writes $2 on the front. And he puts it into, you know those wine boxes you pinch from the back of hotels, yeah? He puts them all into the wine boxes and he drives off to the markets in Brisbane. And he sells out for cash, within minutes. Within an hour of arriving, he will sell out. It's called the Wangedunga Man. Now, he owns his house, he owns his 2 trucks, he owns 2 utes. And, I did say he owns his own house. Okay.
The man out of elephant poop.
But it's pretty hard to talk with him. I visited him in his lounge once. He has this giant ball of poo in his lounge, about that big. You've got to do the fingers, haven't you? Yeah. It's about that big, on the floor, covered with clear fiberglass epoxy, and it's quite clearly this elephant poo. And he's got this brown glass tabletop on top of the ball of poo. Yeah? Absolutely wonderful piece of art. His art into his house.
His work inside to create the artwork.
I've got to tell you, it's very hard to drink his coffee.
But I hope it hasn't been blended.
So in answer to your question, do you have unusual businesses? Yes, all the time. And I think people are quite inspired sometimes to come up with something from their knowledge and from their background. He wanted to go straight. He didn't want to go back to jail, right? No way. His family wanted to support him in the only thing this guy knew. He wasn't an attractive looking bloke. He had a head on him like a truck ran over him when he was 5. He was just, a rough and tumble looking bloke.
Elephants don't care about that.
But no, especially when they're facing in that direction. But this particular guy didn't have a lot going for him, but he had a knowledge. And he put the knowledge to work. And how successful was he? Of course he's successful. Very successful indeed. So, yes, you can have some great ideas and some unusual ideas. The guy sitting on the toilet, the elephant poo. Why do I always tell toilet jokes?
Because we all understand them.
Yeah, it's pretty basic stuff, isn't it? But yes, it's a matter of then seeing that you have knowledge in a particular area, and that knowledge can push you towards a business idea that you have specific knowledge of, and that you can expand with the talents and knowledge that you get from your course here. And without those talents that you're learning right now, you'll fail in the first year. Once you graduate, you will find that you'll be in that successful group. Anybody else got anything?
Yeah, what happened to the woman life coach wannabe?
We had a long talk and she decided to do a few other things with her life.
But you know, people can also learn from other people's mistakes, not just like you say, just.
But they don't pay. They don't pay to listen to that sort of thing. A life coach is a very specific talent, and it usually requires someone with very good life experience and life skills, passing that knowledge and skills on to the person who's willing to pay. It doesn't work in reverse. That's one thing I know for sure. In truth, you're right. Yeah, philosophically, you're right. But in terms of commerce, it doesn't work that way. People don't pay on that basis.
With the NEASE program, what if you're interested in going into a franchise?
No. It must be for a business that you are organising for yourself, that you'll be the only owner. You can be in partnership with another person or another party, another group of people if you want, a number of people in a partnership. You can have a family trust, proprietary limited company, or any other structure that you wish to have. But you can't be an existing business and you can't be a franchise. And the reason is that the franchise, McDonald's, owes you a duty that cuts across a lot of the things that NEASE does for you. Yeah. And it takes away their obligation to a degree. So the government's not interested in going that path.
Completely off park, and the guy who did the toilet to remove the oxygen, can they create something for nappies so when a baby doesn't poop Can you just pass it on for me, please?
I'll even invest if someone could come up with that idea.
I think a lot of mums
You could do it
and,
yourself.
and a lot of students in this room would probably agree that that'd be a fantastic idea.
Like a couple of grandmas.
And grandmas and all of that. So if you'd like to pass that thought on to him, you might be able to create something new.
I bought a box. I did bring a box, and it's not full of chocolates. It's full of brochures. There's a booklet on contracting that the government puts out. It's a very good booklet on contracting, the laws, etc., relating to that. I brought a number of booklets on the National Bank Micro Enterprise Loans and a number of booklets on the NEASE program. Okay, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
And I was very pleased that nobody left halfway through. I wish they'd signed it.
Some of them might.